How could all this have happened to him? Macario couldn't understand why fate had treated him so harshly and unfairly. He had grown up as a diligent and obedient boy, dreaming of following in the footsteps of his father and grandfather, becoming a soldier like them, defending his homeland from enemies. His father and grandfather were no longer in this world. He lived with his mother, an elementary school teacher, in a small one-room apartment. His mother worked hard to make sure he had everything he needed and wasn't worse off than others. They had a special bond, understanding and feeling each other from a distance. Finally, he graduated from military school and became an officer. His mother was proud of her handsome son, but now he lay on a bed made hastily from old boards, covered head to toe with an old blanket, staring at the dark ceiling. He recalled everything that had happened to him up to this point and couldn't believe it was real. He was a former officer, now useless to anyone, scraping by without jobs and receiving a meager pension. He lived in an old abandoned house with rotten floors and broken windows, barely covered with plastic. Once he had a family, a beloved wife and daughter, a job where he was needed, respected by his comrades, cherished by his mother. He traveled to conflict zones, completing combat missions, and was a good commander to his subordinates. Everything changed in an instant, his life divided into before and after. On a secret mission, a shell hit the house where his unit was hiding, everyone died, and he was the only one who survived. Macario lost consciousness and was concussed. A fire broke out, severely disfiguring his face and body. When they found him, they thought he was dead and urgently informed his family. His mother couldn't bear the shock and died of a heart attack. A few days later, she never even knew her son was alive but almost unrecognizable. Macario always suspected that his wife never loved him and married him for the comfortable life he could provide. Now, in his difficult moment, he was convinced of it. He noticed how she pulled her hand away in disgust when he tried to touch her. He desperately needed the support of a loved one, but his wife avoided looking at him and started hiding their daughter, fearing she would be scared of her father. Eventually, she disappeared from his life without any explanation. After being discharged from the hospital, he would come to his house and watch his wife and daughter from a distance, feeling close to them in some way. One day, he saw his wife enter the building with a distinguished man and a huge bouquet of roses. She was happy, laughing all the time and fixing her hair. From then on, Macario stopped coming to the house. He no longer had a family. They had started a new life without him, with no place for a disfigured man like him. Macario took a train and went wherever his eyes led him. He got off at the first station and wandered down a path leading into a small forest. This is how he reached a small village, on the outskirts of which he saw an abandoned house with boarded-up windows. This house became his temporary refuge. Apparently, the owners had died, and the heirs didn't need such a treasure. Macario started to make his new home as comfortable as he could with things people discarded. He had golden hands, and the time he spent restoring old items distracted him from sad thoughts. He acquired a bed, a table, 2 chairs, an old armchair, and even a shelf. He managed to find and repair an electric stove, and the house had plenty of pots, kettles, and other kitchen utensils. The owner of the local store turned out to be a former soldier. He felt sorry for Macario and let him work as a loader. Macario worked mostly at night because people were frightened by his appearance. One day, a large shipment arrived, and Macario had to work during the day with his drunken partner Ramiro, who was already drunk in the morning. In the corner of the back room, there was a dusty sack that Ramiro had brought in the morning and thrown on the floor. The sack occasionally moved and whimpered. "What do you have there?" Macario asked, walking toward the corner. "An animal. Gani gave it a swimming lesson today." "You mean drown it?" Macario's eyes widened. "Yeah. Old Husky went into the woods all summer and got knocked up by a wolf. This is her gift. At least it's just one pup and not a whole litter." Ramiro sneered and spat on the floor next to the sack. "Who do you think you are?" Macario asked. Who are you to decide who lives and who dies? Do you even know what life is, how fragile and delicate it is, like a spider's web in the wind? Here one moment and gone the next. Who gave you the right to take a life from a living soul? He grabbed Ramiro by the collar and pushed him against the wall. Ramiro squirmed in Macario's strong grip, gasping for air. And so, Macario ended up with a puppy named Rico, incredibly beautiful with sky blue eyes. In the old house, they shared their modest food supplies, a wooden bed, and an old blanket. They said two lonely souls found each other, and from the very first moment, an invisible bond was formed. They understood each other perfectly. Rico sensed his master's mood, anticipated his every move and wish, and obeyed all commands. He grew quickly, gaining weight and strength. Macario found new meaning in life. There was a living being in the world that loved him no matter what, despite his disfigured appearance, the dilapidated house, the meager pension, and small earnings. In their old, abandoned home, there was love, friendship, and the warmth that every living thing needs in our harsh world. Only one thing puzzled Macario. Every evening, Rico would sniff around a distant corner of the large room they lived in. The wolf seemed to sense something hidden under the floorboards. Rico felt warmth coming from that corner, something a human couldn't understand. Macario sometimes had terrible thoughts. Maybe there were traces of some horrible crime hidden there, but he pushed these visions away and didn't let the wolf go near that sinister corner. One night, while Macario was in a deep sleep, Rico couldn't resist and rushed to the forbidden spot. He dug with his nose and paws through the rotten floorboards mixed with dirt. At the bottom of the hole lay a small sack wrapped in old rags. Rico retrieved it and brought it to his master. When Macario unwrapped the decaying cloth, he found a large cross on a chain, studded with emeralds and rubies. How such a relic ended up in this abandoned house, Macario still doesn't know. Sometime later, a very attractive man appeared in a small town by the sea, tall, slim, with graying dark hair. He was accompanied by a magnificent dog of unknown breed with blue eyes. In the mornings and evenings, when it wasn't too hot, this mysterious pair would walk by the sea. They would swim and play in the cool water for hours. During the day, they could be seen at the market, buying fresh vegetables, fruits, meat, and fish. It was clear they didn't deny themselves anything. They strolled everywhere, in the park among the luxurious rose beds, on the promenade among the vacationers, or simply sitting in the yard under a huge chestnut tree. Macario had to undergo several surgeries, and Rico waited faithfully, living with the shop owner where Macario had found his friend in a sack on the floor. Between surgeries, Macario looked for a place where he and his dog could settle permanently, arranging the purchase and paperwork for a house by the sea. Gathering all their modest belongings, Macario and Rico moved to their new place. Ahead of them lay a long and happy life.